Late night, they ain't getting no rest. Work so hard, people think I'm obsessed. Cream at the crop, won't settle for no less. Headed to the top, arena so focused. Yeah, gorilla of the jungle, I've been beating on my chest. I learned from the struggle, it was all just a test.
The crypto side of things, take a look at some altcoins. I do want to look at a few of the indexes that we watch, such as Total3, Others Dominance, and we'll take a quick look at Bitcoin dominance as well. But there are some interesting coins that are showing a little bit more relative strength than some of the others. That being said, there is still weakness and uncertainty in the market. There is still increased tensions around tariffs. We did experience a bit of a rejection on our SPY and NASDAQ, as I talked about yesterday, so that's something we need to keep in the back of our minds. But we're going to jump into the charts here, see what's going on. So first off, we're going to start here on our Into the Cryptoverse website here. So utilizing the tools again to get a better idea of what's going on in the market. So this is the altcoin season index. Essentially what you see is when this red line is down here in this green box, it means that Bitcoin is outperforming the majority of altcoins. So when we want to see our altcoins outperforming, that ROI is going to kind of start increasing. So once we see that increasing, that's kind of a signal that we might be looking at a little bit of an altcoin season. So basically on the 90-day ROI time frame here, we're still in this green zone down here. Same with the 60-day, we're still in that green zone, even lower than the 90-day actually. So on a 60-day time frame, Bitcoin or alts are actually performing a little bit worse than actually on the 90-day time frame here, only by 2. So only 13 altcoins essentially outperforming Bitcoin in the last 90 days, while 36 are underperforming. So of the top 50, just being in Bitcoin was a safer play, just recognizing that downtrending price action in the altcoins and not taking that excess risk. That being said, over the last 30 days, we kind of have seen it start to climb out of this territory, kind of uptrending all the way through here, and we're continuing that uptrend with these higher highs. So we could see a continued relief bounce from the altcoin market, just depending what kind of news we get going forward. Same thing with the kind of escalations in regards to tariffs. It's really hard to kind of navigate these markets when every other day there's a new headline about tariffs or about tariffs being canceled. So we do see on the 30-day ROI time frame, altcoins starting to outperform here. So that might be a signal that we might be due to start kind of moving up out of this region here on the larger time frames. But we're going to really need to show that technical strength for that to occur. So we're going to take a look at the charts, see what's going on here. Looking at Total3, there are a few levels of interest I'm looking at, but we're just going to start on the very high time frame here. So we're looking at the weekly chart. There's a few things I want to point out. So essentially we had 2 major extensions in the prior bull market here. You can see each time we had one of these pulling that Fibonacci from the breakout point to the high, we did experience that golden zone retracement before going on the next leg up. Same thing over here. We also had that golden zone retracement right below or just above that 786, and then ultimately we pumped back up, got rejected by our 200-day moving average, and that was the end of the bull market, confirmed there, and we just broke down from there to these lows. You can kind of see similar thing that we have over here. We had from our breakout to our high, came back into that Fibonacci golden zone, second leg up also into that golden zone here. So we are currently bouncing. We're just at about the 200-day, just above the 200-day moving average, but still stuck under the 50-day moving average for now. Looking at a Fibonacci retracement from the cycle low to the high, brought it back here to this just below that 786 Fibonacci on the high time frame. So I pulled the same Fibonacci level for this cycle here, and that brings us right here to that about 560 down to about $521 billion market cap for Total3. This would be a kind of worst case scenario if the cycle top is in and all we get is a dead cat bounce to lower highs. Then I think we come down to these lower targets here. We experience a bit more of a suspended bear market, coming back down here before we can kind of reaccumulate and then look at the potential next leg or next cycle kind of thing. That being said, we'll flip over to the lower time frame as well to get a good idea of what's going on. So essentially all we had here, we were in this kind of bearish wedge right here. You can see price getting above the 200-day, but coming into that 50-day moving average and a big rejection. So that's a big bearish candle right there. We can see basically we had that indecisive doji right at the top, signaling that the market wasn't really sure what it wanted to do. Unfortunately, we weren't able to break out. We had this huge bearish engulfing candle followed by a second pretty big bearish candle here. So we're struggling to hold this upsloping trend line right now, as well as a little bit of confluence of the 200-day moving average, but we have lost that uptrend structure. You can see right here on the 4-hour, basically uptrending all through here, and then that's when we lost those lows. So if we come in, reject again on a lower high, that's another bearish signal to me. Just says to me that altcoins are not ready for that next leg up, for that alt season. So we really need to be paying attention to that. So something like this, if it were to play out, I think the most likely price action is this. And that's also not going to be ideal, because if this plays out, we're now stuck under the 50-day, under the 200-day, rejected by both of them. And then I do think we're likely at least to come back to this support zone down here. So a ton of support right here initially. Also that 786 to 618 Fibonacci golden zone. So if we break down from this wedge, this is going to be my target area for a potential bounce play or swing play. But that being said, we're still going to wait for confirmation on the charts, making sure that we're getting that higher highs, higher lows, supported by our momentum indicators, as well as all the other factors we talk about. So price action, price patterns, candlestick patterns, support and resistance, as well as all those momentum indicators, ensuring that our setups are solid and we're likely to go on that reversal. And then we have another support zone down here in around 715, kind of down to about 700 billion. So two zones of interest potentially accumulating altcoins for a bounce play. We will have to watch how kind of this price action plays out, and then how our indicators and everything look when we return to these levels. If we come down here and it looks like it still wants to keep bleeding, we're not going to get into any positions. We're going to wait for those setups to show themselves. But right now, total 3, it could bounce from here. It really needs to show some strength for us to continue up. Otherwise, that breakdown is more likely. Flipping over to others dominance, looking a little bit better for now, although we were we were consolidating in this triangle here, and then ultimately breaking out. We're above the 50-day moving average. Looks like it's curling back up, which is ideal. Looking at the 4-hour indicators here, kind of seeing that we are losing a little bit of momentum, kind of coming into more of a neutral territory. MACD looks okay for now. RSI also just above neutral, so nothing to write home about right now. We want to see that break out and then hold this as support, continuing up from there, or we can just hold these lows, continue up on the higher time frame. We can take a look on the weekly, see how it looks kind of here. So we see gaining a little bit of bullish momentum on the DMI with that blue line curling up. We see the MACD pretty oversold. We see that red histogram really looking like it wants to flip, and we see the RSI curling up towards that there, holding the lows. So looking pretty good. We could see, as long as these lows hold through here, we might have to consolidate, come back, tag it down here before we can kind of go up and try to attack this down sloping trend line. Similar to what we saw over here, we saw ones try to break out there, ultimately coming back down, and then we did finally get that breakout and that back test. So we're looking for that breakout back test for that entry. So just pay attention, don't rush into anything. It's not looking too good on the low time frame. On the higher time frame, altcoins are definitely reset enough where they could go on a rally, but it's really going to depend how sustainable this rally is. So either it's going to be that dead cat bounce to a lower macro high, in which case the indicators are going to tell us that that move is not sustainable. Otherwise, we're going to get a sustained breakout with proper structure, good confirmation across all the factors that we're watching, and then we can kind of look at that as a more sustainable run, a potential actual another leg up in the market. But we really need to see strength in the SPY, in Bitcoin, and especially in Ethereum. So I'm going to look at a few altcoins here that I am interested in, ones that look a little bit better. That being said, we want to make sure that total 3 and others dominance are showing a little bit more strength on the low time frame before we're entering even swing trades, because if the broad market's just going to continue breaking down, it's essentially just going to drag everything else down with it. So we're not taking the risk if the macro doesn't support it and the actual trade itself, so the chart itself, doesn't support it. So we're going to take a look. These are some of the stronger ones that I kind of pointed out from some of the other ones that I do watch. So this is a, I made this document navigating the altcoin market cap. If you haven't checked it out, it's in the link in the Google Drive in the description, as well as all the other material for educational purposes. So it's just different coins based on their narratives and how I weight them based on risk. So I looked at all of these coins that I was interested in, and then I picked out the ones where the charts looked a little bit more bullish than the others, like there might have been more opportunity. So we're going to start on AVAX here. Sorry, excuse me. Looking at AVAX, I'm going to start on the daily chart. Looking at, it's like really high time frame support rate through here. We can see basically acting as support all the way back there. You know, multi-cycle support essentially once the chart finishes loading here. Sorry about that. Yeah, so we can see pretty much all this support dating all the way back through here and then ultimately in through here. So this, as long as we can hold these lows, you know, AVAX looks pretty good to me. We've got a secondary support zone right down here in that kind of 12 down to about $10. And then we've also got a little bit of support here around $8.40. So I would look to potentially take a swing trade in AVAX here. We can look, we see a good momentum in terms of the DMI. The RSI and the MACD could come down a little bit. If we look at our 4 hour, we can get an even better idea. Sorry, excuse me. So right now we are just at our 50-day moving average. We see the 200 up here. We are losing a little bit of momentum on the lower time frame. So you see that DMI line curling back down. We see that bearish cross of the MACD. We did get the bearish cross of the RSI as well. We see our Bitcoin pair strength indicator green here on the 4 hour after a bunch of 52-week lows. We did break out of this long-term downtrend. So we see stuck in here all the way underneath, came back to that key support level, uptrend structure. So as long as we can hold these lows, hold this downsloping trend line, I think AVAX could present a decent opportunity for a swing trade. What I'm looking for is price to come back to this lower time frame Fibonacci retracement. It also coincides with a Fibonacci retracement from this swing low to this swing high. So we can kind of take an entrance right around here and then making sure our momentum indicators are reset by the time price comes back to this target. And then we see stop loss below support, protecting the position from that downtrend price action. And then I've got a couple levels marked here. So if we do take this trade, when I get to this level here, that's my target to move my stop loss up to entry. So we get up to this level, you move your stop loss up basically to your entry point. You don't risk any downside. Price has moved up enough where if it breaks these support levels, you know, it kind of invalidates the trade in a sense. And then we've got another level up here, kind of a take profit level. So rate, come up to here, move your stop loss to entry, come up to here, maybe you take 50% profits on the trade, and then you come up to your final target and take the rest of the trade, or take the rest of the profits off the table. Or if you're doing it and leaving a small percentage to run in case the market continues up, you'd take another about 50% of profits, and then you have 25% left to ride up in a kind of further momentum if that continuation does play out. We can look at Cardano here. So Cardano is another one shown a lot of relative strength lately, just riding this long upsloping trend line. We are above the 200-day moving average with pretty good price action, just consolidating in through here. We're just stuck at that 50-day moving average. So what I want to see on Cardano is getting above that 50-day moving average in that uptrend structure, coming back, holding it as support, in which case I might look to actually open a little bit of a spot position there for Cardano. We can kind of see this huge volume uptick right in through there. And then what we want to see, similar to over here, sorry about that, we'll get rid of some drawings, but basically what we saw on this breakout here was a big volume uptick. So we're watching this, we see big volume coming in. If we start to see volume increasing here, and then we get above our moving averages, hold them as support, that's going to be a potential accumulation opportunity for Cardano. We're going to flip over to IMX. So this is one I'm looking at as a potential gaming play. You know, I'm not super interested in gaming. That being said, it is a narrative, a pretty popular one in crypto, so we do have to pay attention to it. So we can kind of look, all of these different coins are just experiencing these big long downtrend breakouts. So just downwards consolidation, downtrending price action. We broke out of it. We're now trying to consolidate in this accumulation phase. We're hoping to keep that uptrend structure. So you can see our indicators looking a little bit bearish in the meantime right here. Bearish cross, bearish cross. We'll see if we can curl back up. Our Bitcoin pair strength indicator trending up on the 4-hour, so that's looking good. We'll take a look at the 12-hour. We see here we do have nice volume in through there for IMX. You can see just a nice little bit of volume increasing there on that breakout. The 12-hour Bitcoin pair strength flipping green. We see MACD and RSI and DMI all might need to come down a little bit more. So what I do want to watch here is this channel that we're in. We could just break back into it. It kind of seems like that's what's the most likely scenario here. So just watching for price to come back to this 60-cent level and see our indicators. But look at this big volume in through here. So somebody's buying a lot on the low time frame, looking for that entry at about 60 cents. And then similar to how we're going to play the other one there, we're just going to take a couple levels. So stop loss to entry, first profit taking target, second profit taking target, and then on to the next trade. Looking at H bar here, so H bar, another one. So a lot of these are, I'm kind of focusing on ones that have been favored by the current administration, or ones that have been explicitly kind of linked to the current administration, just because I do think they're going to get favorable favorable regulations, you know, favorable treatment. Obviously it's going to happen. It happens all the time. So we take a look here at H bar. We see low RSI looking good, nice momentum change on the DMI curling back up, oversold on the MACD curling back up, nice little price action through here, but kind of just still stuck in this consolidation sideways pattern. So what I want to see on H bar is that kind of continued break of those highs. We'll flip it to the daily chart. The daily also looks like we have that little bearish cross right there. So that's why I say wait for that confirmation. If we start to lose these lows and we go into that downtrending price action, you know, don't take the trade right now. Wait for that higher low, higher high, subsequent higher low, confirmation, and then we can really look to continue up from there. So H bar, that's what I'm waiting for, that price action like this, looking for the entry over here. Looking at SUI, another one similar to H bar. It's looking like we want to come up, get that confirmed higher low here. Looking at our momentum indicators, losing a little bit of steam here on the 12-hour, so we could be due for that retracement. We want to make sure when we come back to those targets that we are getting a little bit of a bounce before taking that entry. So that's what I mean. When we come back here, take a look at the 4-hour indicators, take a look at the 1-hour indicators, even you can look at the 15-minute indicators, and just make sure that they are reset enough and could support more of a push up, and we're not just kind of buying into the last of a little move up here before we continue down to lower targets. So that's what I'm waiting for on SUI, just continued higher high, higher low structure, getting in on one of the bounces down here, not rushing into anything. Taking a look at Link here, we see Link, this is another one, is excuse me, pretty much coming down to this very high time frame support. I'll show you that on the weekly, dating back quite a long time. We'll see here. Yeah, so dating all the way back to 2020, acting as support and resistance throughout this market cycle. We can see here that the DMI getting that bullish momentum upwards, oversold nature on the MACD, RSI curling back up, and our Bitcoin pair strength indicator also curling up there. So looking decent on the high time frame for Link. That being said, we're still stuck under resistance. We still need to put in some more convincing price action. You can basically see we've got this down sloping trend line. We've also got another little trend line that we have broken out of. So we see right through here, we did break out. So that's kind of what I'm trying to play, is these little downtrend breakout plays. You can see the moving averages here look a little bit more bullish. This setup looks better for Link to get on top of these two moving averages and then make that move to the upside. So just paying attention to that. We'll flip to the 4-hour quickly, see what we can see here. But essentially, yeah, so we do experience a little bit of rejection at that 50-day moving average, kind of as I suspected. You know, we're not going to blast right through these support and resistances. We're probably going to come back. So looking for that potential swing entry down here, closer to that $13 range for Link. Flipping over to Brett. So Brett looks not as strong as some of the other ones. It's a newer meme coin, so it's really volatile, really risky. That being said, you know, there might be a little opportunity here. We basically came down to this support. You know, this support goes back to the whole launch of Brett. It's basically, it was its starting price. So coming back there, finding support there is a relief. And then we broke out of this downtrend right through here, and we're just kind of up on this, starting this new consolidation trend. It's a little bit of an upsloping trend line, but it is very low time frame for now. So that's why I say this is a riskier position. It's a meme coin and it's confirmation on the lower time frame, but you can pretty much see coming down, upsloping trend line, or sorry, downsloping trend line, breakout. Now we're holding this trend line as support. We go into our upwards kind of move here, sideways consolidation, breakout, back test, another push up, back testing again. So if we see Brett really come another high, come back, retest that 50-day moving average, look like it wants to bounce and continue up, that would be the opportunity for the swing trade there. So looking for that price action, and then if we get something like this, you know, look for that higher low confirmation with the momentum indicators and then ride that up to higher targets. That's essentially all for now. I do want to just show you what I am concerned about. Big down day on the SPY and a big down day on NASDAQ. So what we see here, this is a warning signal when we talk about, you know, we came down, broke below our 200-day moving average, bounced back up into it, and a massive bearish candle right there. So that's a warning sign that we could be due for a continued downtrend. If not, at least coming back and tagging some of these lower targets on the SPY. It's the same thing on the NASDAQ, and so we see here, yeah, it's just not the best look for markets. That's why altcoins were starting to look a little bit better, and then markets just dumped and we start to lose that uptrending price action. So we really need to see a lot of strength from the markets going forward. We need to see a relief in terms of escalations around tariffs, and we need to see Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the SPY showing that strength again before we can kind of really start to get aggressive and take a bunch of trades. So if you learned something new, please like, share, subscribe. It all means the world to me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.